Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Secondary Heroes podcast. It's time to talk Loki once again. We're up to episode 2, The Variant. This is your host, Trevor, and joining me as usual is...
Hey, guys, it's Prague. Where's Alex? I think the TVA got him.
Dang.
Hopefully there's not a variant Alex running around anywhere.
It makes you wonder what he did.
Right? Yeah, what did he do to screw up the timeline?
If any of us would mess up the timeline, it would be him.
It would be someone who owns a DeLorean, I would think.
Yeah.
Yes. Anyway, so he won't be joining us. It'll just be Trevor and myself today. So buckle up. Here we go.
I know, there's no positive look at anything.
No. Well, we'll see how it goes. Episode 2 of Loki. This show had some promise, and we'll see if it continues to hold up that promise, I think. So, yeah, do you want to do a spoiler-free take real quick before we dive into everything else and all the socials and such?
Yeah, so, again, if you've never watched Loki, please do so. It helps for our podcast. And if you've never listened to us, be sure to have an understanding that we like talking about Marvel shows. And also, we're not going to sugarcoat things, and we're just going to tell it the way it is. So, with that, episode 2, my one emphasis going into this was, come on, show, please be good. Before it started, that was my one hope, because episode 1 was promising. And for me, episode 2, it kept up the quality of the production of the show. And then when it was over, my main takeaway was that I was excited to find out what episode 3 is. And it left me wondering, how are they going to resolve this? And that's what I want from a show. I can't speak to everybody, but I love where it's not cut and dry and clear of how things are going to play out. I have no idea where they're going with the show, but I'm excited to find out.
I do think that was probably my main takeaway, was that I had a kind of an understanding of where it might go, and now I don't. And that excites me. I was like, oh, okay, this is going to be a case per week. They're going to go case by case and try to find different Lokis. And nope, that didn't happen at all. I'm not going to spoil anything yet because it's not spoilers. But I was like, all right, this is interesting. Yeah, I will say it continued the kind of theme last week of just being really, really well written, really well acted. The cinematography's been great. The music is, I think, the standout this episode. I mean, I know last episode is really good, but I think that this episode was even better with that. And then there's a lot of dialogue-heavy scenes that were very fascinating to me. I don't know how fascinating they are to everybody, but to me, I found them very intriguing. So I would say this was a great episode.
Yeah, that was our one hesitancy from last week. Can they keep up the dialogue heavy sequences if they're out chasing, variants? And they did something different than I expected. It looks like they're going to keep it up throughout the entirety of the series.
Yeah, I agree. Exciting times ahead for us, I think, this series. I wish it were actually more than 6 episodes now.
I know. Not like, how are we going to make it through 6
right,
episodes?
Oh, jeez. Well, to have another one of these monologues or one of these montages. And yeah, so we don't have that, thankfully.
Thankfully. So
silliness. We don't have Alex here this week, so we don't have
usual section that's done by somebody else.
Wait, hold on. I don't know these scenes very well, so maybe you can handle this one.
Yeah, it's easy enough. Follow at Secondary Heroes on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all that good stuff. And then be sure to like, comment, subscribe on YouTube, especially the comments, because we're going to interact with you. When we tweet new podcasts or just new topics of the week, interact with us. We'll interact back. It helps. All that good stuff. And then go to iTunes, leave a review. Tell us what you think, whether it's good or bad. It helps us critique the show, improve the show. And remember, all of this is free for you, and it's priceless to us.
Sure is. All right. Spoiler territory.
Spoiler time. So if you haven't seen Loki at all, or if you haven't seen episode 2 yet, it's on Disney+. Go check in. Also, it's worth noting, if you do go to the Disney parks, specifically California Adventure, where they have the new Avengers campus, there is a Loki character, and he has changed his outfit. So week 1, he was wearing his prison getup. This week, he's wearing his new jacket that says Variant on the back. So they might keep it up every week. So if you do go to the parks, you might want to keep up on the show.
It was, that's pretty cool. And it was interesting when he put on that jacket. He was all like, he made it a note to really show it off. So I'm sure that shirt will be available at Disney Shop soon, so you can purchase your own variant coat to wear.
I kind of liked it, to be
It was
honest. I
fun.
was like, that's an easy cosplay.
It's very easy. Just put on the coat and that's it. You're done. A wig maybe, and you're good to go. So
Yeah.
good outfit, good episode. Where to begin? I actually think we should start at the beginning because I thought the beginning was kind of a fun play on time. Because the episode begins with a Renaissance fair, which, if you've never been to a Renaissance fair, it's all about going back to the Renaissance period and in modern times. So you get to kind of go into this bubble where people cosplay as people of the Renaissance era. And I thought that was kind of fun for a timey-wimey type of show. And then you have these time cops coming through the portals into this world, and it's really still the modern day, so they probably weren't too freaked out. Like the people in the show were reacting to them like, "Hey, well, you're not in the right costume." They just assumed that they're just in a costume. It was fun. I liked it.
Yeah, if you went to the Renaissance period wearing that, it would be weird. But if you go to
Exactly.
1985, it's not as weird.
Right.
Especially because it's all 70s chic for everything that they're doing.
Yeah, that's true. They probably wouldn't have thought much of it, just like, oh, hand me down, outfits or something. But I guess I didn't notice until you just mentioned, it's the 80s, that I guess because it was Renaissance fair, but they didn't kind of seem like they were in the 80s. To me, it kind of seemed like they could have been at any point.
Well, it couldn't have been any Renaissance fair for the past
it didn't feel
30,
like
40
the 80s.
years.
I was like, sure, okay, fine. Anyways, I did like the line where the woman was angry at them for being out of costume and said, some of us need this. I thought that was good.
Yes,
that was fun. That was a fun little poke at cosplayers and Renaissance fans. So
yep. So for this sequence, this is the whole. There was two standout points for me that in the circus. So we know that there's this hooded figure that they're chasing, which is a variant Loki, and what they do is it's a Scarlet Witch style mind control where just like Age of Ultron, instead of the red glow when they tap the forehead, it's a green glow. But it was really interesting. Shout out to Scarlet Witch, just because Loki and Scarlet Witch and multiverses are so intricately tied right now.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's also cool because it's not really one of Loki's powers. So this really is a true variant. It's seeing someone else's powers. And they mentioned that later on in the episodes, like the different variants do have different powers. So you're going to see different types of powers. So that was kind of fun to see this new Loki tap into the actress. I don't know her name, but she was in that Amazon show about the end of the world and the flu thing that went around. It was really good. It's about these people that actually went to Comic-Con together and read a comic book, and the comic book comes to life. Anyways,
I remember we talked about that on Secondary Shorts.
We did, yeah. It was a good show. It was dark. It had its flaws, but the main character, who was the one that initially got kidnapped by Loki, I think is a really good actress. I think that I would have rather have had her be a more prominent character in the MCU, but it was still fun to see her kind of become somewhat villainous for a few moments, kicking butt and taking names with the hot song of the moment, apparently, because this song has been dropping in a lot of trailers. I don't know what happened. I don't know.
Need a hero, man. And there's
somebody
still not
like
going to beat
song.
the Shrek 2 version.
No. Yeah, as soon as you saw that, I'm like, oh yeah, Shark 2. And then, of course, they dropped it with the new Masters of the Universe trailer, and now this. It's definitely starting to permeate the pop culture sphere again. But it worked well. It was a kind of fun moment. I'm sure that whatever was said over the loudspeakers is important. I don't know what it means quite yet. Something about a princess and a battle coming up. I'm sure it's foretelling stuff that's going to happen, would be my guess. There's a lot of that in this show. A lot of foreshadowing and foretelling.
Yeah.
Probably because it's all, time loopy and such.
Time loopy stuff, it means if you go and rewatch it, you're in your own time loop after the fact. And then all the stuff, your knowledge that now makes sense in this back. You can create your own time loop. That's actually, we do have time travel that's possible. It's just in the form of how we take in entertainment.
Exactly. Like if you watch Dark a second or a third time, it just gets better and better. Like, oh my gosh, I know what I know now, and fitting that. I shouldn't mention Dark every single week, but I do. Sorry.
I don't know. I feel like we need a bingo card at this point that says Frog mentions Dark.
All right, there you go. Anyways, it was a really fun opening. I thought this was, a fun way to start this episode. So then we get the title card.
Yes, which I meant to mention it last week. It's really neat. Just the Loki written in different forms as it just cycles through the different variants. It's a really subtle way. Like it doesn't need to be this ornate title card to really show the entire show. It embodies the whole show with just Loki flashing different forms.
Yeah, and it has that Twilight Zone kind of feel to it too, which I really liked.
Yep. And so now, I mean, I don't know where you want to go, but I think one of the big takeaways from this episode is when they now are going kind of Loki has his jacket on. We get our first mission intel briefing, and they show the Lokis through time. It's a little hologram, and it shows how the different Lokis. Like first, it's just like him wearing different clothes, but then he sees that one where it almost looks like a Hulk version of himself, and he starts to realize what this actually means. It's not just him in different time periods.
Right. It's actually variations of himself, which is what I wanted. So I was happy to see that. I'm like, okay, cool. This is what I meant by variance, not just you happen to walk off and now you have a new path. It's not like the butterfly effect, it's an actual variant that exists outside the timeline. So
this is when you get to the whole multiverse idea. Like, when Rick goes and there's all these different Ricks, it's not just Rick in a different form. It's like Crumbopulous Rick. It's a completely different variant of Rick. The multiverse has every potential version of Loki you could think of.
Yep. Once again, it's a good idea that they brought on the producer of Rick and Morty to run this show. Yep. It's, you kind of see his fingerprints all over this, and it's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, again, if you've been keeping up with us, we're going to jump around as kind of highlights, lowlights idea. So,
right.
I think we should just cover the biggest. Go right to the end of this episode because Prague, you were right.
Go big. I
don't want to hold back.
I was excited. I was kind of like, I'm right, but I also think I might be half right. I don't know where they're going to go with this because the Lady Loki that I know from the comics is really Loki, but he takes on like a female persona. And this obviously looks and feels like a completely different Loki altogether. So it could be Lady Loki. They could be toying around with a couple of different ideas just to throw us off the scent. But yeah, I'm excited that it ended up being a female variant of Loki at least. And we'll see which version they go with in the comics because there is the Lady Loki and then there is Enchantress, who is a girl who was given powers to be Loki without realizing that Loki had given her these powers. And one thing that I thought, thinking of that, was what if that girl from the first episode ends up being the one that Loki gave the powers to with the gum, or I think it was gum or candy, the blue candy that they gave her. Like, what if she is the one that grew up to become this, other person? I don't know. That's a stretch. I don't think that's going to happen. But it will be interesting to see who they decide this person will be. Because there technically wasn't ever a variant Loki in the comics per se. It was always technically truly Loki himself, but in a different form.
Yeah, and it's interesting you bring that, like, them giving kind of what the audience was postulating about, because WandaVision did that. They gave us Quicksilver, a new version of Quicksilver, and the internet was like, oh my god, this means so much, and then it didn't mean anything.
And it doesn't.
So exactly. They could do the same exact route, or they could actually have it mean something.
I don't know. It could. It's a different showrunner, so he might have a different idea running through, his head of what he wanted to do with this. To note, for those of you who may decided not to watch the episode and they're listening to this, at the end when she does show up, she does have specifically Lady Loki's crown. It's the crown that has the one horn that's intact and one horn that is broken. So my guess is they probably will go the Lady Loki route, but then maybe merge the other character into that personality. So we shall see. I'm excited though. That's exciting to see that. And I like that we all were kind of like expecting it, and when we all saw it, I think together we're like, oh cool, it really is going to be Lady Loki, instead of just being a letdown of, oh, it's just it's actually Tom Hiddleston. Okay. I think that would have been disappointing.
I do too. Like, if you didn't tell me about Lady Loki, it would have been more, I think, exciting from last week. But I liked it because in this episode, I noticed all the times they said he. They were going over the variants, and they said he game. Like 20 times. And I was like, he. And I put it in quotes. By the second page of my notes, it's in
It's too
capitals.
many E's. Hey man, it's funny. I actually didn't write that note down. I was going to, but I was going to keep it if it wasn't revealed who it was this episode, because I'm like, they're saying he way too many times at this point. So I
didn't know if they were going to do the reveal or not. And so I kind of like that they did, because it lets you get on the story. Because, again, we're jumping around this episode. What she does at the end, it's a big, huge deal. I don't know how they come up with a
That's like a
solution of what
series
she
ender.
just did.
It's a series ender in this episode too. Like, what?
I know. It's crazy. Like, so again, we know that this hooded figure has been taking the little time reset things, the charges, everywhere she goes. She's going and killing TVA guys, and then she's taking the charges. Mm-hmm. And so now she has all these charges lit up. And so she sets a timer so Loki figures out kind of where she could be. And they go to this place, and they show this entire supermarket, and there must be, I don't know, 50 or 100 different charges set to go, and she has them all go off. And so the episode ends with every single one going off. We go back to the TVA, and the main sacred timeline has a few dozen different forking off pathways, and they're all about to hit the red line. And then the Loki we know has a choice to follow her through her portal or to stay with Mobius at the supermarket. And he chooses to go through the portal after her.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he made the right call. I think if he had stayed behind, it wouldn't have been easy to find her anymore. Because it took him so long in this episode to figure out the trick. Like, where is she hiding? Mm-hmm. And that was another cool part about this episode, was how he explained like his own thought, like how he would think, like, oh, I like chaos work, and I find chaos in time. Oh, an apocalypse, because if everyone dies, no one will have the ability to say, hey, that was different, I'm going to veer off this path and do something else, right?
No one who interacts with that person would remember.
Right, will remember, because they're dead. It is genius. Yeah. I'm like, wow, that's genius. But if what she did at the end of this episode by destroying the timeline, there's no reason for her to go into an apocalypse anymore. She did what she had to do. She probably spent, a lifetime finding all these different charges and setting this all up. So he pretty much had to go with her. Like, in that moment, it was like, what was he gonna do if he stayed behind? He'd be screwed. If he goes with her,
probably reset him. Yeah,
right,
they wouldn't even assume.
Like, oh, we're done.
Yeah, they wouldn't trust him. Right. Yeah.
So he made the right call, I think.
And so this is also to the point where he talks to her for the first time while she's kind of embodying other people. He's having a whole conversation, and he shows kind of the cards that you assume would be his cards that he's going to go over and take over for the timekeepers. He's going to go and talk to them and, do something and destroy them and oversee the actual timeline. We don't know if that's his actual intention, but that's kind of the obvious intention of what he's going to give to her. And he throws out the thing, you can be my lieutenant. Not like we can rule together or anything. He literally is as dismissive as possible of her. And of course she says no to this possible scenario, but he still follows her after she's not really playing his game, because she also says right before she leaves is that it's not about you, because he's like, he keeps saying like, oh, the superior inferior, he has this whole like complex going on. And she says, this isn't about you. I don't even care about your existence. This doesn't mean anything to me. So that's also kind of a slight to him, just because he's still in the Loki that everything revolves around him.
Of course. That's a good point. That point tied together with her not saying her name, like, don't call me that. She doesn't
want to be called Loki. Yeah.
So that makes me think that maybe they are doing the whole enchantress thing, and she's not actually a variant. The show wants us to think that she's a variant of Loki, and maybe she's not. Like, maybe she's actually Enchantress, someone who was given Loki's powers at some point during a timeline event. So my money is on her not actually being a variant of Loki. We'll see if that happens or not, but just the way she said that, like not wanting to be called Loki and then saying it's not about you, then yeah, it's not about Loki. Then, it's about something else. It's about this other person maybe causing chaos and mischief and wanting the timelines to be all wackadoodie. And maybe, sorry, there's a lot that happened this episode, but there's a moment where they're in Pompeii and they're testing the whole theory out. Will going back to an apocalypse and changing things screw up the sacred timeline? They say, no, it doesn't. And Loki frees a bunch of ghosts. It's like, be free, my horned friends. And it's like, is she doing that too? Is she freeing the different Loki variants that they've like erased? Is that why she's taking all these different files? Is she releasing them back into the timeline to create all those different, branches so that they can live their own lives? I don't know. I have a lot of theories about what she's trying to do, and that's one of them.
That's a really good one.
Yeah.
No,
I just came up with that recently, so I don't know. We'll see if it ties.
No, I didn't think of that, but it totally makes sense just because the show's called Loki, so those charges aren't going just to like those charges are designed to reset the timeline, but that's not how there's no incentive for her to reset the timeline. So she has to have an alternative motive to use the charges.
Right. We don't know how the charges actually work. They don't really tell us, right?
Right.
I know they disintegrate stuff, but how, why? Do they retain the memories of what happened in that event? Are they completely destroyed when it happens? Because she reverse engineer them to spit them back out somewhere? I don't know.
Yeah, because all of them have that like solution inside of them where it looks like or
it changes colors.
And so if you could go back, like if it say that they actually reset a Loki. They reset 50 Lokis, and so now she goes and reprograms it back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there you go. Now you can tell multiple stories in different universes and not have them affect another universe. You can have the X-Men, you can have the Fantastic Four, you can have alternate versions of different characters in different universes.
And just for this show, it goes back to self-identity, because does Loki make the same decisions? Because this entire episode is about, this is what I would do, so I'm going to follow this path. And so if you had all these Lokis, do they play out the same way as this? Because though that gets to the whole idea of if are your decisions kind of made for you, or do you make your decision? Are you predestined to make these decisions? It also gets to nurture versus nature. Is Loki, is it in his, because in this episode, Loki also says no one is entirely bad and no one is entirely good.
Right.
So what is Loki? Is he different? You could see different Lokis to play that out specifically. Does he always make these certain choices?
Exactly. And now we have a Loki that exists outside the timeline in the TVA as well. In the TVA, is he free from that? Is he free from his timeline, so to speak? There's a lot.
For the audience, it's fun too, because we've known Loki now as this, re-engineered version of himself. This more like I'm connecting, he's like not good, but he's definitely better than that cycle. So this extracted out variant, when we're watching him as an audience, it's tough to go back to 2012 and it's like, okay, Loki's a bad guy. When you see him make decisions, you kind of wonder, well, maybe there is a different motive and it's a good motive, because you're used to seeing him make those decisions. So they can mess with the audience really well because you've already went back and taken a Loki out from something that you forgot existed almost.
True. Wow. Very true. Yeah. So that was a lot to take in this episode. A lot of that talk about philosophy, about time, about what you said, nurture versus nature, all their talks that they had. I think it was just, all of it was so well done. Especially the whole salad analogy as well was kind of fun. Taking a salad and showing him, how the apocalypse stuff would work. Don't take my salad. It's my lunch. And poor Casey. Oh, it's you. Taking his juice box. It's fun. It's a fun way to explain kind of these heavier topics. I don't know. And then another big point that I wanted to talk about was that same scene where they are talking about, everyone's, a little bit good, a little bit bad, and no one's truly all good or truly all bad. They also mention, it's Mobius who talks about, how they're holding together the timeline. That's why they're trying to prune all these different events and variants that happened, so that they can write the ending to time, so that we can all meet together in peace and love at the end of time. And it's like, wow, that really sounds like a cult to me. He's like, he doesn't question anything. It's just, it's the way it is. And they told me at the end of the time, we're all going to, meet together and be happy. It's like, I don't know. I'm starting not to trust the TVA. I think that I think, and maybe this is the other thing I was thinking of, was maybe this Lady Loki isn't the bad guy. Maybe the TVA is the bad guy, and this Lady Loki is trying to free everyone from this like taut timeline that they've been trying to hold together for their own nefarious purposes. When in reality, we should have all these, multiverses, out there.
Yeah, Loki flipping the switch to go into Mobius's motives, that was interesting just because we don't really know, like, again, he doesn't know how long he's been doing this, and
Right.
he could, like, cult is a really good form because I wrote down that same line that at the end of time we're all just going to be happy. Like,
Right.
what kind of motive, like, how, like, because he asked him, well, don't you know your future? Don't you know how this is going to play out? And he doesn't. He's working at still a current present for him, even if he's jumping through these different time periods. How do you have that potential end game that we're just going to figure out time? The entire timeline is complete. From beginning to the end of time, everything is perfect. My job is done. We got rid of all the variants. And how do you even come close to believing that?
No, it's just ridiculous. And I think that, maybe Loki is onto that. And this other Loki kind of already figured it out. And it's like, no, I'm going to free everybody. Screw this. Screw the TVA. I don't want to rule them. I want to destroy them pretty much.
And then when he went to the judge's office and he was like, every time I go to your office, there's more to look at. And I was like, well, that's definitely a wink, wink to the audience. But also, as they're having that conversation, I wrote down the note, do the timekeepers exist anymore?
Right.
Because they pointed at a few things like the TVA maybe outlived the timekeepers. And because he asked her, well, what are the timekeepers doing? And she's like, oh, well, they're doing what I'm doing. It's like, are you reporting the timekeepers? Are they really focused on the timeline, or do they not exist anymore? Somebody did overthrow them or kill them, or they just passed away. And now the TVA left in its sole discretion. And so now Lady Loki has to kind of reveal that to everyone. Because like Loki said, I've never heard of the TVA before.
Right. Not only that, but then, the agent that got woken up is like, no, I told her everything. Like, and also muttering the words like, oh, it's all real. It's all real. Like, what? What's all real? Like, it's almost like she got woken up from something,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that is. But going back to that scene, though, in the office with the two of them, there was one scene or one moment where I thought it was really interesting that they kept focusing and zooming in on his glass going on the coffee table over and over again and talking about the rings and not remembering it being him doing it. And I'm like, they're really focusing on that. And I don't think they would just focus on that over and over again for no reason. And the only reason I can think of is that he probably doesn't remember being there because there might be variants of him that exist.
Yeah.
And that he might be that analyst that he is so jealous of that keeps coming in. It's just him.
Your new side analyst.
Yeah. Oh, your new side analyst. Yeah, it's just you, Mobius. Come on.
Yeah, because
that's why everything's new to you.
You're the one who leaves the rings on. Right.
Yeah, I was like, come on, Mobius, figure this out. That's your job. Your job is to hunt down variants. So you think there's a variant of you out there?
Yeah.
Anyways, he didn't though. So they have that, and we also have that pen. So he picks up the pen, has the name of a high school. No idea what the high school is. I researched it. I'm like, it doesn't have anything to do with any character that I know of in the Marvel comics, but I'm sure it's important for something.
It's probably self-contained maybe to the show.
It could be. Yeah, it could be just, some new character that is introduced. But yeah, they focused on that as well. Some to think about. Maybe a mutant eye. I'm just kidding. Yeah, there's no in this.
That's what it is. The TVA kept that out of the timeline.
Exactly. Xavier,
just blame the TVA for everything. All these things that haven't happened, it wasn't Fox and business or money. It was the TVA.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Crazy.
Anyway. Yeah, I did enjoy that scene. That was a lot of fun. What else is good this episode?
Well, still also, yeah, like when they go down the escalator and you see the layers of the office, that was really impressive. And it's a subtle thing, but it's set design in all the paperwork. The paperwork is so authentic for the time period. The folder, the manila folder style, the stamps they use, everything. Like,
it's not
again, they don't have digital anything, but the
No,
papers take
everything
so
is.
much time to create. And even when he goes and asks the one lady for files, some shows would have a computer say this is classified. They
Oh,
actually had a
sorry.
human person to tell this is classified. It was really funny.
Like Cara Dune. Sorry. Oh, random, symbol on the screen. Sorry, but yeah,
Classified.
would not work. Yeah, it was really great. So props to the prop department because the props were phenomenal and detailed and like just all the different typefaces that are put into every single document and drawings and stuff. It's really neat. A lot of work went into that. So
Yep.
the details, devil's in the details, Bev.
Always.
Anyways, yeah.
And then with those files, he did read about Ragnarok, and this was probably the most point where I noticed how well the music's like you mentioned it, but just the music to convey emotions without having to say anything. The
Right.
music tells its own story in this show. It's so much goes into making a show. It's not just people flying around on screen. And to go into this Marvel's never really excelled at music. There's not really iconic soundtracks probably until Avengers Infinity War came out.
Right. Yeah, it was a while until they figured that out. They're like, oh, we should probably have, steamy type music or anything for that matter. Yeah.
And so it's really impressive to see him doing it on a TV show. Again, this is the one that's most felt like a Marvel movie, just split into 6 parts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it goes back to, I think, I don't know when I had mentioned it previously, but it has to do with the mise en scene. As everything goes together and creates this soup. You can't just have a well-written show. Like, that's great, but you also need, good acting, good costume design, props, music, lighting. Everything that goes together to create that look is important. So and then I guess whoever is the showrunner made sure to pick the right people for those jobs to make sure it all meshed well together.
Yep.
And they did a great job. Marvelous.
It's really impressive. And going back to your salad analogy, one thing that I hoped we wouldn't miss from the first episode was just Tom Hiddleston and Owen Wilson sitting in a room and talking. And they somehow did it like 5 different extended sequences in different places in this episode.
And it
I
worked
didn't know
every
if they
time.
could pull it off.
It was great.
Yeah.
It was really great. All of this, and every time they have a scene together, it will always be poignant and funny and deep. Mm-hmm. It's not like just one thing. It's not like, hey, let's just do, fart jokes and stuff, or let's just talk deep philosophy. It's a combination of all these things. They really do have a chemistry together, and he can really, point at Loki and say funny stuff about him, but at the same time, like, wow, that really hurts. It's like, he is a scared child. He is just a scared little kid, running around causing mischief. And still they can have these deep conversations, and it's a lot of fun. Well-written scenes.
And so with that, one kind of example I wrote down is where he says, so Loki's kind of explaining that's me and kind of describing what decisions I would make. And he's like, okay, take a breath. And now we're going to go with Professor Loki. And it's just fun little asides and slights.
It was great. Yeah. Take a breath. Noted. Let's move on. This is so great. Yes. Oh, good time. I'm glad they cast Owen Wilson. It was great. And I forget who mentioned, I think it might have been Yoko, to me the other day, said that Owen Wilson looks a lot like Howard Stark. And I didn't think about it at first. I'm like, he looks familiar. Why does he look familiar other than being Owen Wilson? I'm like, yeah, he's kind of dressed like that. He has that same kind of look. I don't know. It just has that Howard Stark look. Too. I mean, it is a lot the mustache, but the mustache, the suit, the period, the haircut. Yeah, I don't know if that was intentional or not. Maybe that's just how Owen Wilson looks with a mustache. So something to throw out there. And there are Stark Industries. I think it was AIM. Was mentioned in last episode, the one who made the sword thing in the ground. So there is Stark stuff in this series. So I wonder if Stark Industries has something to do with the creation of the TVA, possibly.
Maybe not even creation, but finding out about it and
out about it or whatever. Who knows? That I think they might have a hand in. I think there's a reason why he looks like. Maybe he's a variant.
It's a variant of Howard Stark.
Oh, this show. All right. I need to stop hypothesizing everything. I don't want another WandaVision situation on my hand.
That's fair.
Yeah. Anyway.
I did like when they went to Pompeii, just because it was fun to. He's like, do something subtle, like a bird or
I know the
something, and he
bird.
just goes full on, and
Like, all right, I mean, run out there.
yeah, and then he gives that whole speech to him, and because it's in Italian, because we learned that the variants know all the languages of periods that they go to. And so he gives the whole speech. And then at the end, he says, nothing matters. Because he's telling the Pompeians, do whatever you guys want. You're going to die. You could go. And just him, Loki saying nothing matters when you're dealing with time that could potentially be reset in an instant. It's fun.
Yeah, it is. It was a lot of fun. And he freed the goats. It was great.
Yes.
Oh, those poor civilians. Never saw it coming. Oh, the one thing that did disappoint me was I was hoping that they would have came back dusting stuff off themselves. Like they had just barely got out of there. Like, oh, whew. They didn't. No. That was a tiny detail. I was like, all right. Anyways. Any other good stuff? Because I have a few other ones, unless you have some first.
Well, I do want to give a shout out to Miss Minutes.
Oh, yeah, I have that too.
I want a Miss Minutes pop. I want a Miss Minutes shirt. I like the Miss Minutes pin. I love that he asked her, are you a recording or are you live interacting with me? And she says a little of both.
Well, like, what does that mean? I mean, she's obviously somewhat real, right? She's corporal because she's jumping around on the desk.
Yeah, she can react to his hands.
She can react to things. So, I mean, yes, so she is real, but she is recording.
It's also recording because this has probably happened before because it's the TVA. Is that why?
I don't know.
Yeah.
This show is a mind meld, let me tell you.
I'm glad that she wasn't just in a one-off episode. I want to, like, Miss Minutes is my favorite part of the show, so you can have her in all six. I think that
she's pretty important because there's even a character poster of her, so she's important. There's something about her that I think is bigger than what we realize. She's also on their devices. Like when they have a device, they have like the different icons. One of them was her. Like, what does she do for them in that scenario? I want to know. So hopefully they tell us. But it was fun, and she's a great voice, great character, great design.
Yeah.
Anytime you have like any like kind of like Who Framed Roger Rabbit type scenario, right? The cartoon in the real world. Yeah. That was fun.
And then that also ties into the Jet Ski magazine. And so the jet ski is interesting just because at first when they're flipping through the magazine, it looks like Thor. It looks like Chris Hemsworth from Thor Ragnarok on the jet ski. And I don't think that it is, but because it doesn't really zoom in, but I thought that was fun. But then to have it come back full circle later and for Mobius to say the early 90s with the jet ski, it was just perfect. It was form and function. And he's like, have you ever ridden one? No. Well, then why does it matter? And it's just, that gets into his whole thing of maintaining the sacred timeline, is to just as a reminder that this is possible creation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was also a lot, like, I know it was kind of a funny one-off thing, but I think there might be more to it as well, like jet skis in the 90s, like maybe the TVA was created in the 90s possibly, and they really like the 70s aesthetic. I don't know. Why would that magazine even be there?
The magazine has to exist, for a reason.
So I'm like I wonder if it was. I wonder if there's something that ties into that. And I'm trying to remember if they go back in time or not for Love and Thunder. I don't know if it'll tie into that. Never mind. My mind's racing with this. I probably shouldn't. But I do hope that Owen Wilson gets his shot to ride on a jet ski before this race. Like, hopefully that's like the credit thing.
It could be his like talisman. He has the magazine when he comes to work for the TVA, and that's all that he had with him. And so that's why there's just a draw to him. Like, he's created a whole reason of why he likes it, but it could just be that's what he had. If it's all these variants of him and potentially he's been reset before, that's kind of what holds him and grounds him.
Yeah, that's a good call. It could be that too. It's fun. It's a fun little Easter egg but we might not realize is an Easter egg until later. So a rewatch will be fun of this show, I bet.
I know. I'm already excited. We're only 2 episodes. I hope they can keep it up, because if you get to the end and it's like some stupid scenario, I'll forget all of the desire to rewatch it.
It was all a dream. What? Oh, that's not how this works. That's not how this works. Yeah, that would be unfortunate if that were to happen.
But yeah, Owen Wilson, his also existence, we kind of glossed over it, but he says, so you know how he explains how he came to be? You know, because again, this whole magazine, if it's where you came from or if he's Howard Stark or anything, he explains his existence in the most mind-bogglingly, pretty much idiotic way. And Loki's like, you understand how absurd that sounds. And so he's like, well, again, you're from frost giants, from the king of gods is your dad, and you don't think that's absurd. He's like, no, that's perfectly real. It's all just a matter of perspective, right?
It is. Exactly.
Because then he says, if you think too hard about how any of us came to be, it works perfectly in the Marvel universe. You don't want to overthink how being bit by a radioactive spider makes you Spider-Man. You don't want to overthink these things. So it works perfectly for Marvel, but it also works for the overarching scheme of existence as well.
Yeah, it really does. It's kind of like, well, anything is possible. Like, yeah, we could be made out of clay. We could be made from a god. We could just be bursted into being. It could be many things. It could be reincarnation. Yeah, anything is possible.
If you start thinking about it too hard, man.
Don't overthink it, man. I like it, Mobius. I like your cult, man.
It's solid.
Sus, though. But I like them. All right, well, let's move on to some more scenes. Because I think the main, I guess, I don't know if it's the main scene, but the big scene at the end. You know, they get to Rox Corp, which I'm assuming is a Roxxon Corporation, like Walmart, the Walmart version of Roxxon, I'm guessing, in the future.
When they first said it, I thought it was going to be Rockstar, and I was like, the energy drink? And then they printed it on the screen. I was like, oh, okay.
Okay, I get it. So that's my guess. I'm guessing they're, just an extension of Roxxon. So that was kind of fun to see. Yeah, it was fun to see the little hologram on the outside, welcoming in. Like, welcome to Roxcart.
So this sequence is interesting because you know how Falcon and the Winter Soldier kind of does a cursory glance of race relations?
Mm-hmm.
This is a very big level look at climate change. It's like, we're going to go to look between 2047 and 2051. Because that's where we think Lady Loki could be, because there was a lot of apocalyptic events. And they list off so much that happens in these 4 years.
Terrible.
All climate-based. And they finally go to a location that's needed. But there's cyclones and tornadoes and hurricanes and tsunamis.
Species.
Yeah. The swallows are gone.
And now we have a hurricane that wipes out, thousands, tens of thousands of people. Oof, that's not good.
That goes beyond Category 5 when it's an apocalyptic event hurricane.
That scene was phenomenal. Even though it was very CGI, I actually liked it because it was well done. Like they show the waves came up shore, they showed buildings blowing up. Like, oh my god, this hurricane's insane. So I can see this being a end of the world type scenario for this town.
Yep.
Very much so. So we go inside the big mart, and of course Loki uses his powers to dry himself off. That's it's just my magic,
The fun thing about this, though, is that him flashing in green always gives the potential that he's not actually there anymore. Like, he could say that just dried himself off, but he could always transfer to be somebody else in that, because they flash green. It could be anything once he uses his magic to do something.
Yeah, he could be somebody else, somewhere else, projecting himself. He explained it before in the scene, about how his
that was a fun
work.
Yeah, he explained the difference in his powers.
Yes, it is different. All right, noted. Hopefully, they do that for more in the future, because I kind of like that. Like, just explain the powers, but do it in a fun way, like that. It works out for everybody. But yeah, I really like this whole scene. This whole. Like, seeing, someone behind the camera, like who is, obviously we knew that we were going to bump into the Lady Loki or the other variant Loki this episode. But then to see that personality take on the different people, like 3 different characters, the guard, Randy, and the big, guy. So that was really fun. They all did a really good job being that persona. Like, you knew it was Loki. Like, the whole, smile and everything. Like, yeah, it's Loki.
It was really good by all 3 of those actors to maintain. Yeah.
Like, they had the mannerisms down and everything. It was really well done. I enjoyed it a lot. Especially, the line. I had to write it down to make sure I got it right. If you could sheath your smarm for a moment. It was such a well-written line. Sheath your smarm. God, that's a mouthful. I love it.
Yeah.
Great imagery. So Loki too. It's very Asgardian.
To your enchantress also thing,
Mhm.
Loki says you keep doing enchantment. He says it's a cowardly form. He literally was kind of looking down on that form of magic that wasn't his usual pedigree.
Okay. All right. So
That was interesting.
It could be. Yeah, it could be a trick. It could be a trick for the viewer. It could be like, oh, you think it's Lady Loki, but it's really not. So, which would be fun.
Yes, it would. And so my one kind of negative of this whole sequence was the market, the Walmart type itself, in that it looked exactly the same. It's 2050. There's no way that all of the shampoo and the soap is going to look the same, or they're still selling those vacuum cleaners that are push based with in 2050.
Oh, the Roomba. Yeah, he pulled the Roomba and like smashed it. I'm like, yeah, what? Yeah, I noticed that too. Like in little toy dogs, I'm like, I'm pretty sure they don't still have those in there. Maybe
the only thing that was like 2050 was that his name tag scrolled welcome on it. And
fun.
That was the only thing. You're telling me not one product is changed from 2021 until 2050.
Yeah, maybe their budget was blown with all the parchment.
Like even new containers for shampoo. You got to imagine they're going to at least change the look of how they store shampoo. But maybe this causes the climate change. They don't come up with new materials to store shampoo, and so they keep using plastic, and it's just messing everything up.
There you go. Yeah. I did notice that as well. I don't know if I hated it, but it was something I definitely noticed.
It was just weird. Right. Maybe that's what Lady Loki is here to prevent climate change.
It could be. That was something I had thought of. I was like, you screwed up so much. Like, all right, we're gonna read it. I'm telling you, I really do think that she might be. I hate to say the word hero, but I don't think her intentions are to be mischievous. If that makes sense.
I don't think it's chaos just for chaos's sake.
Chaos. No, I don't think it. I really do think that she is trying to do something good in a way, in her own way, to what her mindset is, at least. It might be bad for the TVA, but I think for what she is doing, I think she's really trying to do something for the better. What that is, I don't.
Loki, the Loki with it we know, he specifically said that existence is chaos. So if you find out that there's these timekeepers who keep everything in order so chaos is impossible, destroying that brings back your core idea and belief that existence is chaos.
Right. And then you have free will.
Yes. Because that keeps coming back. Loki pretty much told Mobius
they've talked about it twice now in two different episodes. So
Mobius doesn't believe in free will.
Which is weird because he has the whole thing with the rings. Obviously, you don't have free will. You keep coming back here. So, oh, Mobius, you gotta wake up, buddy. Wake up from that dream. So, anyways, fun scene. So we have that, and then we get the reveal of Lady Loki, right? And he has that whole thing about wanting her to come with him, and of course, no, she's not good. Because it's not about you. That was fun. It was really fun. It was fun to see, like, all the different pods go through all the different, portals and stuff, and then especially watching the TVA freak out. Like that was a lot of fun to me, and seeing all the different cities listed on the maps, like of what where the different ones are going to for the bombs, I guess I want to call them. And I think I paused it the best I could. Maybe a few notable ones, like, Asgard and a few different places from different Marvel films. I doubt they'll play up to anything, but it was, I think, a fun little Easter egg if you wanted to pause your TV and check that out.
It's just neat to see.
It's just neat. It's neat to see all the different background stuff that it's a lot of attention to detail in this that ties into other Marvel stuff, which I really enjoy.
And just the attention to detail to have like a 70s bureaucracy where the guy's going through some special code number rather than just saying everything is insane. It's code 000. Code
005. What? Come on.
But it was so by the books needed so that the other guy has to step in. Because that guy, he's wearing like the glasses. He has the white short sleeve shirt. He probably had a pocket protector. I didn't notice. He was like prototypical bureaucracy nerd guy.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, the guy with like the giant mustache, and he's all freaking out too, and they bombed the
The guy who
timeline.
looks like he's seen all kinds of stuff was freaking out about this.
Yeah. Oh god. So
Yeah.
great. And then we have our. I feel bad for don't know who the character's name is. The judge, the main lady at the office.
Yeah,
whatever her character's name is. She goes and grabs her little stick that looks like a katana, which is kind of rad. So I guess it's like some super version of the People Destroyer stick thingy. I don't know.
So just the scale of watching all of those things go to different portals and then seeing the red timeline and all the forking pathways, it makes you imagine how much chaos can potentially be. But then to show all the TVA guys go off and then see the judge is leaving too. Yeah. What if Lady Loki is just going to the TVA because everybody's gone? She did this just to create. Perfect. Yeah, she literally emptied out the headquarters.
That's a good call. Yeah, they have to. It's all hands on deck. They all left. They all went to their separate.
So places. There's no one to protect the TVA itself now.
That's brilliant. I like that.
It's a good plan by her.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I keep thinking, because there's a few things, I'm not going to say anything right now, because I know you don't like to watch trailers, but I know the initial trailer showed some scenes. I'm still like, wait, how are they going to do that, though? Or what's that going to mean? So I'm really intrigued to see what's going to happen next, because I have no idea. I think that's a good call. I do think they are going to go back to the TVA. I think that's a good call. Maybe they will do that. Or he'll time travel with her and through different apocalypses still, maybe.
I think they did that.
They could have, yeah. I don't know.
But also that sequence was fun too. For him to figure it out, what she's doing, to just go through the files and stuff. It's just so many little things like that. Even himself, right at the start at the Renaissance Fair at the circus, he's explaining, like, that he's lying. And Mobius is following him for most of the time. Like, the alert's going that we've been here too long. And he's just going on and on.
He's like, wait a second. He's talking a lot right now.
That was really he did talk a lot in this episode. And Mobius finally calls him out. What happened to the guy in the elevator who doesn't talk?
Right? Buddy? I don't think so. Yeah. Yeah, it was really good. It was really good to see him tear up about, Asgard being destroyed and all that, but also, going through all the evidence and saying, like, okay, what would I do? Where's the best place for me to hide? So he's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So.
Yeah, even just also Mobius knows him so well though to say, I can get you an audience with the timekeepers to be that carrot before the horse.
He totally made that up. He's like, well, I can do it.
It's so good though. Like you're looking at it, Loki would totally. That is amazing for him.
Of course. Like, oh, I get to meet them? Are you sure? I get to meet the Wiz? Oh, let's do it. Let's go. I want to meet the man behind the curtain. Gotta throw in the Wizard of Oz reference at least once during the series.
WandaVision should have done.
Yeah, they should have. That's all right. Anyways, it was a great episode. I don't know if there's too much else to talk about. That's all my notes, at least, that I have. But I'm excited. This was a great episode.
Yeah, I totally agree. The one other thing was where he says, I'm not going to stab you in the back. And Mobius is like, I've literally seen you stab somebody in the back 50 different times.
Okay, I won't do it again.
Not this time. And then that's where Loki, a little later, Loki says, trust me. And Mobius is like, how come the ones you can't trust always say trust me?
Yes.
Exactly. It's true, though. I mean, that's just a core human philosophy. When it says, I'm telling the truth, I'm not lying, trust me, any form like that, they're lying. There's people who aren't lying don't feel the need to say those things.
Right, or like, I'm a good guy, you can trust me. Like, no, that's never the case.
It's just like when somebody says it's not about the money. That means it's all about the money.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for sure.
Amazing show. Really good 2 episodes. I hope they can keep it up. And as we sit at the end of episode 2, I have no idea how they're going to resolve what just happened to the timeline. And because I love time manipulation and ideas, and there's so many potential opportunities for them to explore. But the core idea of the show, even with all the time stuff, is using a fantasy backdrop for self-exploration. It's just not many shows really do a good job of self-exploration. And he literally gets to talk to himself as different forms of himself. Like, I'm just so excited for that. Episode 3, you know he's going to have these long dialogues and soliloquies with Lady Loki in some form about what you're doing and what it means to me and what I would do and all that stuff.
Yeah. I can't wait. It's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of internal stuff, which I enjoy.
I know. This show somehow can just be in a room and talk for 5 to 10 minutes at a time, and it's entertaining TV. You got to give them credit.
Good TV.
Please, other Marvel shows, take notes. You don't have to be flying around in the skies for it to be a superhero thing.
Right. Leave that for the movies.
Once you have superhero things, you've opened up the door to fantasticism. You can do anything within that context.
Exactly. Yeah,
Star Wars should take notes too.
No, I mean, some of my favorite comic books growing up as a kid with like the X-Men and stuff weren't the ones where they went out on big missions and were flying and doing stuff. It was like the internal ones, it's the ones where they were talking together in rooms and having conversations about about existence and life and love and loss and what have you. Like those moments are great. Like you can do that once you've established it, and I think they're finally doing that, and I hope they continue to.
Yeah, because you can explore it because there's still all of our stories are mainly about human problems, no matter what brand or thing it is. It's still human problems, and so once you can dive into those things because they can actually, they don't have usually the human trappings of like some are immortal, some have different, like you're almost invulnerable to all kinds of things. It lets you kind of dive into existence more than mortality. Just because that's the trapping of things where it's like, oh, you're going to die, you're all the ways you can die and all this stuff. But to go beyond that, it literally gets to the core concepts of soul and self and existence.
Well said.
Fun stuff. Loki. Every Tuesday night at midnight Pacific time, or you can watch it on Wednesday. Hopefully, like literally just so everyone knows, Lady Loki was trending on Wednesday morning. So... Oops. You got to watch this stuff pretty quick.
Yeah, I guess
or
so.
Or just stay off of social media until you want to watch it. It's par for the course at this point. Yeah, cool. Hopefully we can get Alex back from the TVA by next week.
Oh, yeah, we got to find that guy.
And to everyone listening, we hope you enjoyed. Be sure to follow @Secondary Heroes wherever you can, and we'll talk to you next time.
Frog out.